It's autumn. Sorry, I know this is really cringy, but I just love autumn here in Washington. The weather cools down, yet there are beautiful warm colors everywhere, especially during a sunny autumn day. When the sunlight hits those yellow leaves, it feels like you are bathed in warm light, and that's like the most healing thing ever. Last week, I spontaneously decided to take my family out for a trip to Leavenworth. I came home with great memories, photos, and videos, and I did this painting. Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. This is not the first time I went to Leavenworth, but it is the first time I visited the place in autumn. I felt like an idiot that I didn't do this sooner because it was absolutely beautiful. After a year of switching job, changing studio, work, a little bit of stress here and there, I really needed a small getaway. So this small trip was such a healing experience for me. I'm not a good vlogger, so I only took a few footages from the trip, and I personally want to relax and enjoy this trip without being busy taking videos. So I will just briefly share with you my trip there. If you are here just for the painting demo, you can skip the vlogging part by clicking on the timecode down below. So we arrived there in the afternoon. We walked around the lodging resort, enjoying the fresh air and the scenery. It felt so nice to be out there in the open, surrounded by the mountains. That night, we went to downtown Leavenworth. Then I realized that we are in Oktoberfest. The whole downtown feels so festive and cheerful. Everyone is so happy to be there. The next day, we went to Leavenworth's reindeer farm. We got to feed the chickens, which is fun. We learned a little bit about reindeers and got to see them up close, pet, and feed them. Their antlers are very heavy. It was quite extraordinary. Kids are really happy to be able to see these animals that they don't usually get to see, let alone touch them and interact with them. That afternoon was full sun, so we went back to downtown Leavenworth, enjoyed the beautiful fall colors, blue sky and orange maple trees, complementary colors at their best. We went down to the waterfront park and walked down the trail, enjoyed the sun, trees, and the river. I took some photo references for paintings. Here are a few photos that I took. Now, generally, when I look for a painting subject, I try to look for good shapes and good value grouping, not just pretty scenery, because there are so many of them, but not all of them are suitable for me to paint. Funny enough, this little scene caught my eyes. As you can see, this is not a beautiful river scene or a vast mountain range. It's just a side of the street. The little white and blue camper under the sun and surrounded by autumn trees have so much story to tell. So I decided to paint that photo, and this is the result. Now I'm going to share with you the process of me recomposing this photo and turn it into a painting that I really like. Before we start, if you enjoy my content, please consider give this video a like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you get notification for more videos. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here we have the photo. I took this photo when I was in the car, actually driving by. And again, this nice, cute little camper really caught my eyes. Just something about the color and the light, how it's capturing the light. And again, with all this environment, it just set up a very, very nice contrast between simplicity and complexity, the light and the dark contrast against this beautiful background right here. So that's why it really caught my eyes. So I will be doing a value study just to merge the shape and stuff, but right now I'm going to recompose this image. So the first thing I'm going to do is to crop this image so that this camper will be just a little bit bigger in the relationship, the whole frame. I will leave a little bit of the foreground. So this is a rule of third grid. Whenever I crop an image in Photoshop, this will show up. And I don't think it's very essential to have a lot of sky. There's not a lot of things in sky anyways. So I will have this camper right around here where the one of the intersection of the grid right here. So I think this right off the bat is a much better composition compared to this. It's a lot more focus, and the overall just feels a little bit more relatable. And if you zoom it out a little bit, you can see this at a glance. And again, this shape really pops out and it really helps the overall read. And you can see this white camper like miles away, which is why I like it so much. So one thing I want to do right now is to get rid of this car here, this SUV, I think. So let me do a very quick paint over with Photoshop. This is not a Photoshop tutorial. I'm not showing you how to use Photoshops. This is just for me to kind of convey what do I have in mind in terms of the vision of this painting. There's a fence back there, there's some trash bin, and the grass over here is lit by the sun. So we can just try to sort of expand that. Okay, and we'll extend the shadow of the camper here. And we might actually see the tree trunk, so I have to sort of invent that. Again, not a Photoshop tutorial, and I'm not really doing a painting. It's just for me to kind of convey my vision a little bit more clearly. The tree is probably going to be rooted somewhere down here. I'll probably merge that with the shadow of the camper. That looks a lot cleaner, right? Again, it's pretty rough. There's not a lot of detail there, but it doesn't really matter. Once I get to painting, I can create texture and whatever with it. So just by looking at this, you can already tell that it looks a lot better. With this car here, it's distracting you from focusing on what I want the viewer to focus on. So when we take that out, it looks a lot cleaner. I will crop it down maybe just a little bit more. And it also feels a little bit empty on the right. I want to have a little bit of balance between the left and the right, because on the left right now, there's this huge tree right here and also this camper right here. So all of the focus is on the left, which is fine, but we want something to sort of off balance here. Otherwise, there's not a lot of things going on here and your eyes doesn't really travel back and forth. So we want to have something there. So I think I will be adding a car here in my painting. Don't really have a reference with me, so I'm just going to sketch it out. Okay, and then I will fill in some very quick colors. So I think I will be making it maybe like a beige car or something. So the back of it is going to be the shadow side. So you can definitely use the camper as the reference in terms of the lighting. Back windshield, we'll make it dark, but maybe with a little bit of the highlight reflection from the sky. And for the right, we will make it a lot lighter, so we can see from the camper again, the right side is a lot lighter, right, because it's hit by the sun. So we'll give the right side some lighter value and catching a little bit of the light on the truck bed, and give it some color for the tail light. Is during the day, so the tail light is not on, so it doesn't have to be really bright, just a little hint there. Okay. The bottom, give it some wheels here, and then this will also cast a dark shadow. So Something like this, again, very, very rough, but you get an idea. We'll do most of our paintings on the actual watercolor, not in Photoshop. So now we have something here that balances off this camper on the left. Otherwise, if we just have the camper, again, this is going to be really heavy on the left. With a little bit of help, this little contrast, this little structure, it will help us to have a little bit of balance between the two. So in the final painting, I'll probably paint the boat in the background, but I'll probably not paint the pickup truck. So I'm just going to paint that out. Otherwise, we're going to have too many repeating stuff. We'll have the boat, the pickup truck, and then the car. So it'll be a little bit too much repeating stuff. So I will much rather just keep it as a very simple background here. So this piece is going to be a very nice, quiet piece. And I think I'm going to enjoy painting this a lot. So we will start off this painting with a value study. Value study is great for a warm-up and also for me to visualize and figure out how to connect similar value shapes together. While I try to look for good shapes when I pick a subject to paint, value study is great to contextualize this, especially for subjects like these where you have bright value, bright color like yellow and white. Those colors can be very misleading when you are trying to put them in their proper value. Just because their local color is bright doesn't mean that it is light value, and a value study is really good for you to figure it out and really see that visually. It is also a good way to practice drawing. This one, because it's smaller and it's value study, the drawing is a lot looser, but it's still a very good practice. The more you draw the same subject, the more familiar you are with it. Drawing is not just trying to make marks, trying to make something accurate, but it's also to get the feel of the subject, its form, its shape, its scale, and placement. So I'm getting ready for the first wash of the value study. I pretty much use whatever left on my palette. So I mix everything together into this sort of dirty gray color, add a little bit of cobalt black. That makes a good middle value wash. So I start out by painting the tree. So like I said, even though the tree is very bright, doesn't mean that it is light value. I actually make that into a middle value because compared with the sky, the yellow leaves on the tree is actually not as bright as the sky. If you squint your eyes, you can see it. The only light value is actually the sky, the white part of the camper that's lit by the sun, and the light part of the road. Because the asphalt is a little bit reflective and it lit by the sun and also reflecting the skylight, so it can get pretty bright. So as you can see, the first wash is all about connecting the middle value. So from the tree, I connect that to the dark side of the camper and to the ground and to the dark side of the car on the right. So that creates a very big major shape. So within that major shape, I start to put in some darker values so I can start to define what's within that major shape. So giving some structure and form to the tree and also start to give more detail to the camper. So just by adding the dark, we start to make this shape more definable. So this is what makes value study so powerful, because the process of making a value study is also the process of how a person looking at the painting. We all look at the major shape first, and then within that major shape, we start trying to define individual structures and shapes to define what we are looking at. So I continue to paint the dark part of the tree, and that really makes the light part of the camper pops out. And that is what's the most important thing about this painting, because again, if you look at this painting from a long distance, from a mile away, you can still see that little white block, and that's something that you want to create in your value study as well. So connect that to the car on the right, adding the wheel, the shadow. Notice the boat in the background. Even though it is a beige color boat, the lightest part of the boat is actually still middle value because the whole boat is in a shadow, so it's not going to be as bright as the camper. So if you squint your eyes, that boat actually just merged with the background. So here is the value study. Very simple, but we definitely work out a good measure shape and value relationship. Moving on to the color version, this one the paper is a little bit bigger, so I draw just a little bit more carefully with just a tiny little bit more detail. I'm using a 4B mechanical pencil, and I really try to get those structured down so that when I'm starting to paint, I don't need to worry about those too much. And I actually want a little bit of leaves on the road just to have a little bit more storytelling. Clean up the line work a little bit with a knitter eraser, and I start to pre-wet the paper. I want to start by painting the color of the light, and it's pretty much everywhere right now. So from the sky to the tree to the leaves on the ground, and also the camper. Even though the camper is white, I actually want to give it a little bit of warm tone to it because it is lit by the sun. And I also want to give the windshield a little bit of cool color. They are reflecting the sky, and the sky is blue. So very quickly, I take a mop brush and start to fill in the colors. So I paint the tree first, and then I start to paint the sky. And as you can see, the color is going to blend with each other. And I don't mind that. I actually think that is the beauty of watercolor, to have the color naturally blending to each other. And remember, first wash is all about the color of the light, so you don't need to stress yourself out about defining any shapes. As long as you have a nice clean first wash, you're fine. So I want to add just a little bit more blue in the sky while it is still moist. And now I start to mix a little bit thicker colors, a little bit more intense color. And now I'm starting to paint the second wash, which is the middle value. So start off with the tree because it is the biggest part. The paper is not fully dry, so there's still some damp area, some moist area. So make sure you have enough pigment so it doesn't create cauliflower edges. Because I want to paint a large shape with a single wash, I really need to not bog down by the details and just focusing on the big shape. There are thousands of leaves in the photo, and if I try to render them all, there's not going to be enough time for me to do that. So instead, just focusing on the big shape like how we do it in value study. A lot of time when we are looking at photo reference, all we can see is detail, and we really need to force ourselves to look at it in a distance, screen our eyes a little bit, and really trying to look at the big shape instead of all the crazy tiny little details. We can create richness and enough variety with different colors. So right now I'm putting in some warmer colors, greens and oranges within that tree wash. So you can see varieties, you can see volume, you can see richness without trying to paint every single leaves. So I stop around the middle and you can see there's some beads gathering. So I try to continue that wash, connecting the shape to the camper, the dark side of the camper. And again, let the color blend in a little bit. The camper is surrounded by yellow leaves, trees, and warm light. So the white, even though it's this local color, the lighting from the surrounding is not going to make it pure white. There are going to be cool and warm colors on that white surface. So let the color blend in. It will actually make it look more alive. And you can still trust the viewer will identify it as a white camper with blue on the bottom. So continue painting the background, and again the boat itself is mostly in the middle value. I leave out a little bit of the reflection of the sky on the window of the boat, But for the rest of it, I just paint it over because it's all part of the background, and the background is mostly middle value. Continue to the right, connect that to the car that I invented. And now while the paper is still a little bit damp, I am mixing some thick dark paint. And I start to add those in while the paper is still a little bit damp. So you get some nice soft edges. These are magical, those lost and found edges. Create those while you still can. But the damp stage is actually quite risky. If you have just a little bit too much water, it starts to create cauliflower edges. So definitely you need a little bit of practice to paint wet on wet in this stage. So you can either wait for it to dry, or you can mix a lot of paint. Make sure your mixture is thick enough when you paint on the damp stage of the layer. So I'm continued it down. And I try to paint, leave out some shape randomly here and there, just to suggest that there are leaves. And it might look easy, but it's actually a very tough stage in this painting because it's very easy to get into that repetitiveness and you start to go autopilot and start to paint a pattern. But you really need to make conscious decision every single brushstroke that you make so that your painting doesn't look dead. Every single brushstroke is an opportunity for a shape design, so really keep that in mind and really try to make conscious decision about each and every single one of your brushstroke. Now sometimes you do let your intuition take away and paint with emotion, but at the same time you want to balance that out with conscious decisions. From both intuitive elements that you paint emotionally, but also some conscious decision and purposeful design. Continue that middle value to the right. Leave out some of the light value on the right and continue painting to the tree on the right. Use a little bit of dry brush mark to create some illusion of leaves. And continue that shape down, paint around the car on the right, preserve the light. So as you can see on the left, I actually went ahead and paint some dark value because I want to do that while it is still moist, so I can have some soft transition from light to middle value to dark. So same thing here as well. While it is still wet, it is your chance to play with it, to do wet onto wet, to create some soft edges and soft shapes. So always make the most out of the drying time. And again, change your mixture along with the drying stage. Continue the background and I start to venture into the car on the right. And when you break that barrier, when you break that edge and connect the shape, it always takes a little bit of courage for me because you are kind of out of your comfort zone. I was painting trees and then I need to transition into car. So I transition from organic shape into man-made shapes. And then I connect that to the boat on the left. Add some dark on the bottom. Add some details and paint some reflection on the window. And I want to preserve a little bit of the cool highlight, cool reflection of the sky on the windshield. Simple detail like that will make the painting more believable. And I just continue to shape down and I make it into a single shape. Starting to add some dark. Dark is dark, so I'm using a little bit of neutral tint. And I'll move on to the camper on the left, our main character. So start by adding some cerulean blue in the back. And as soon as I paint the dark side of the camper, you start to read the structure and the lighting. And I go ahead and continue the dark on the bottom. Give some dark to the wheels and the bottom of the camper. There's actually a little bit more details on the back of the camper. There's a propane tank. So I just kind of suggest that shape in. And then paint some dark details, suggestive shadow of the window frame, some nooks and crannies. Tiny little details that just makes it look more finished and believable. The window frames on the back. And I also want to give it some textures and values. There's a curtain inside. And now I continue the wash and paint the light part of the grass. It's nice and bright, but it is still somewhat in the middle value. Now I start to paint the road. There are tall trees on the right of the photo. You don't see them, but they are casting huge shadow on the road. That's why you see a long, big strip of shadow, cast shadow on the ground. So while I paint it, I try to leave around some of the leaves. So try to paint around some shapes. And it's important to use a brush that's a little bit bigger because it holds more pigment and you are able to make bigger wash a little bit more consistently without using a smaller paintbrush and try to fill the space, try to fill the area. Add some cast shadow from the camper. Adding some shadows on the grass, and there's actually some trash bin behind the camper. So I also want to paint those in too. So the purpose of those is not because I really want to paint trash bins, because those shapes will make the camper pops out just a little bit more. Now I paint a tiny contact shadow underneath the leaves on the ground just to give it a little bit sense of thickness. And with that tiny little brushstroke, you can actually feel that there are leaves falling on the ground. So the painting is pretty much done, but I feel like the dark side of the camper is not dark enough, so I give it a layer of glaze. Took a little bit of courage to do that, but the courage pays off. So the light on the camper pops out even more, and the whole thing looks a lot better. And I look at the painting again, and I also decided to give it a glaze on the bolt in the back. And here is the finished painting. I really like how it turns out. It says quite a bit of story, and every time I look at this painting, I was reminded that I was at Leavenworth, chilling out and enjoying the nature scenery on vacation. This painting feels really intimate and personal, even though the scenery itself is nothing spectacular and is not a landmark in Leavenworth. But I love it, and it just proves me once again that painting is such a wonderful way to capture and re-experience the memories over and over again. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this season as we step into the tail end of 2021. Slow down your pace just a little bit and experience the nature that God created for you. I'm Eric from Cafe Watercolor. Hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. I will see you again next time.